Hello, my name is Rosalind Love from the Department of Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Celtic, and I'd like to introduce you to one of my colleagues, Dr. Richard Dance. Hi, Richard.
Hi.
Could you tell us which part of the Anglo-Saxon, Norse and Celtic tripos you're responsible for?
Well, I teach Old English language and literature.
Fantastic. What exactly does that involve? What's your favourite part of teaching that to students?
Everything, I think. By which I mean that there's all kinds of everything in it in a really exciting way. There's a big variety of things which are covered by Old English, and that students can study as part of it. So I guess that some people think of Old English and they think that means Beowulf. They think of Old English literature, and don't get me wrong, Beowulf is kind of cast iron wonderful. But Old English is so much bigger and more exciting and more multifarious even than just Beowulf. So, for example, there's more than 30,000 lines of poetry which we have surviving. That's everything from emotional lyric poetry to spiritual contemplation, some quite rude riddles. There's tons and tons of prose as well. Chronicles and sermons and saints and laws and bizarre travelogues. What people might not know is we have surviving writings written personally by famous people like King Alfred the Great. So we actually have some of his own words to posterity. So something for everybody.
Fantastic. Tempted though I am to ask you about the rude riddles, what I'd like to ask actually is, what aspect of your course are students most surprised by when they start it?
I think maybe by actually how accessible it can be. I think once you get over the initial shock of the kind of weird spellings and the unusual letter forms, there are some brand new letter forms in Old English which we don't even use anymore. It's surprising then, I think, how many Old English words are work-outable. You can kind of work them through and tell what they might be, what they might relate to in modern English. So once you know a few basic principles about pronunciation and some simple rules about grammar, you can get more deeply into it, I think, more quickly than you might think. Which is not to say it's totally transparent. Obviously, half the fun of doing something like Old English is the strangeness,
sure, yeah.
the kind of alienness of the English language in its earliest form. We're having to learn essentially as a foreign language the roots of something we take so much for granted now. So there's that. But I think there's also a huge fascination and a huge pleasure from getting to make the connection between those two things, working out that Old English is something you can make sense of after all. And actually also that doing that helps you see better than you probably ever had before why the English we speak today is like it is, with all actually the quite crazy spelling system which modern English has, and the really quite diverse vocabulary and makeup that it has. Where does that come from? Why do we need all those funny bits of words, the weird spellings, the strange irregular verbs? So Old English will help you make sense of modern English like you never have before, which is to say, at all.
Fantastic. What would a typical week studying Old English involve?
I think once we get into it, and once we've learned some grammar, so say a typical week, once you get past, say, the first 3 or 4 weeks of your first term, would involve at least a couple of things. So we'd have a language class where we're translating a little bit of Old English text every week. So you would go away and have a try at it, then you'd come back and we'd read it together and work on it in the class and work round having a go at reading it together. Alongside that, we'd also normally have a weekly lecture, so usually on a literary topic. So we might focus on a particular Old English poem or a particular prose author. We have a whole series on Beowulf, of course. I'll typically ask people to read a bit in advance, and then I will take you through the major themes, the major critical issues, the debates, and the context for it. And depending on where you are in your essay cycle as well, you might at the same time, if you're a student in ASNAC, also be writing your weekly essay on an Old English topic that week, in which case you get to choose a particular poem or an author or a theme or whatever, write your essay about it, and come and discuss your ideas in a one-on-one way with your supervisor. I think that always is a culmination, brings everything together of the kind of learning experience in Asnac.
Gosh, can't wait to get started. Can you entice us now with a little bit of Old English?
Aha, now well, here's something I've prepared earlier.
Uh-huh.
If I can persuade the screen in front of me to share. So
Oh,
there we
look,
go.
there it is.
So you should be able to see something called an excerpt from the Battle of Maldon. The Battle of Maldon is a poem which was composed to chronicle a battle in 991 in Essex between the English and the Vikings. This basically wasn't a very good time to be on the English side. This is a famous poem about a famous English defeat, but it has huge amounts of rousing, stirring poetry in it, as the people in the English army fight on regardless, even after their leader has been killed, for instance. And here's a very famous bit of positive motivational speaking, Old English style, from an old warrior. This is as rousing as anything in Shakespeare, I think. And I offer it often to students any time they might be feeling a bit blue or a bit fed up or a bit like they're being charged by a mob of rampaging Vikings. Here's the translation. This is an old warrior encouraging the men around him to keep going. Mind must be the tougher, heart the sharper, spirit must be the greater as our strength diminishes. Here lies our leader all cut down, the good one in the dirt. He can forever mourn who now intends to depart from this battle play. And in Old English, something like this. Here shall the herdra, herte the kenre, mood shall the mare, the ura mai and lutlath. Here leith ura eldor, el for hewen, god on greote. Ah, my gnornian, saith a new from this wee playan, wend and fencheth.
Fantastic.
If we come back, there we go.
Thank you very much indeed, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you.